the Sebastian City Council Budget Review Workshop. Let's have a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance, please, if you'd stand. Thank you.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Here.
And Councilmember Nunn?
Here.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get, Chris, do you have your video turned on, or do you want to turn it on? No, he don't want to turn it on. He's working right now. Okay. That's fine. All right. Budget overview by the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, first off, good morning. Kind of getting things started. I did condense this beginning discussion down quite a bit since we're working to complete the workshop in just one day instead of two. But I want to make sure we give our departments plenty of time to discuss with you all if you have questions or comments. So to begin with, I just want to take a moment to thank and recognize the Finance Department and all of our department heads and their staff for their hard work and dedication putting together this proposed budget. I specifically want to recognize Jennifer Smith, who's our Assistant Finance Director. She's done a tremendous job this year on the budget as we dealt with only having Mr. Kilgore on a part-time basis. So Jen has been instrumental, first one here at City Hall and the last one to leave over the last 3 or 4 months. So I just want to recognize her, and she is on a well-deserved vacation today and next week. And I also want to thank Mr. Kilgore. He stayed on, played a major role in developing this. As you all know, he is a guru when it comes to budgeting and how we come to the numbers that we're presenting today. And so I appreciate his willingness to stay involved and be here for me personally, but also for all of our staff throughout this process. So the purpose of this workshop is so you can discuss with each department their operating, personnel, and CIP requests for the proposed FY 24-25 budget. The draft budget presented today is balanced with a millage of 3.1955, which is the same as this current fiscal year, and will show as a 7.02% increase due to anticipated property value increases. You will see within the budget documents, we show a current excess amount of $56,467 in general fund. However, I do want to state that we are still working to finalize employee benefits and also property liability insurance amounts. So that's why that is not shown as a zero number. We still are waiting for those numbers to be finalized. Within this budget, you'll also notice that one enterprise fund, the stormwater fee area, is we are requesting at least a $2 increase. The current proposed budget includes this, and we'll discuss that as we get later on into today. The certified taxable property value provided by the Indian River County property appraiser is $2,299,447,470. So that is what we are basing all of our information and our revenues for ad valorem is based on that. The FY 25 general fund budget is proposed to increase $560,987 compared to the amended FY 24 budget. Personnel costs are proposed to increase by 8.2% due to requested new positions, pay, and benefit increases. Operating expenses in the general fund are proposed as a 2.1% increase. We continue to try and recognize the hard work and dedication of all of our employees with this proposed budget. Staff has done a great job over the last year advancing many projects, and we have quite a few that are currently ongoing. Staff has made it a priority to apply for as much grant funding as possible this year so that projects can continue to move forward with as minimal impact to our budget as possible. And with that, any questions on that information? If not, we'll go into the departments. All right, so we'll roll right into the city manager budget. That'll be the first one we'll do. So just transparent, I want to bring it to your attention that the city manager budget did have the city's largest percentage budget increase in this proposed budget, percentage increase of 35.5%. This is due to the usage of the organizational efficiency money in last year's budget to create 2 new positions. The first position is a special projects director / city engineer position, which involved moving Karen Miller into the city manager's department. The second position was the creation of a communications and social media coordinator position. You will see that equated to a large increase in personnel services within the department. We continue also within the department. I have the city manager's assistant, which is Margarita, and she also currently serves as our public information officer. Capital request for next year out of the city manager's budget includes the purchase of a drone and accessories budgeted in the amount of $1,200 that will improve our video capabilities for social media and other communication elements. Currently, the drones that we have within the city are all within the police department, and they use those for different programs, different video capabilities, and it's completely separate than what we need within the city portion. Our operating budget saw increases in travel and per diem, cell phone, dues and memberships, and training and education, all due to the addition of the 2 new staff members. It is important, I feel, that we continue to allow employees to attend training sessions and conferences to learn new things and stay up to date with the latest trends. Any questions on the city manager budget?
I just have one. How much, what percentage of Karen's time is she spending still supporting Public Works?
So currently, at least through the end of this month, she is still out at Public Works. I would say a large majority of her time is still pertaining to that at the current time. It has kind of been a good transition for Lee. He's jumped right in on a lot of major projects that we had ongoing and day-to-day operations, and Karen's kind of still continuing to ensure that the transition works effectively. So she will be transitioning over to City Hall the beginning of August.
Okay, and you don't see a need to have some part of her FTE schedule for the 24-25 budget to still support them in the interim? You think you're comfortable that can take place? Because there's no sense in the city manager's budget carrying all of her if she spends part of her time in Public Works.
So the city engineer portion is still underneath Public Works, okay, but we just, in the simplest way, we just took the full amount of her budget because it all is still general fund related, whether it's Public Works, okay, or it's city manager. So to clean it up, we just put it all completely underneath city manager.
I'm just trying to take the pressure off for you being the biggest increase in the budget, you know.
I understand that. And that's why I stated that to start off with, because I wanted it to be said and the reasons why as well.
Yeah. No, I think the move with Karen into this special projects director is certainly needed. It's going to be a big benefit, and then Avery does a fantastic job. So I'm personally comfortable with all that.
Yeah, I just have one thing. Now that we have Avery on board, we have Marguerite doing, what did we say she's doing, the communications?
So Margarita is still currently the public information officer. I have spoken to Margarita and Avery both. My priority when we hired Avery was to get our communications and social media improved. We're currently still in that process. However, Avery is starting to go to some training opportunities in the public information officer world. It is a completely different element from communications and social media. Public information is a lot more professional and detailed. You've got to always remember to say the right thing because you're going to be in front of the media quite a bit. So in speaking with the chief of police, we have both recommended Avery to start to go to some PIO trainings. And eventually I can see that portion of the responsibility will get moved to Avery so that everything regarding PIO, communications, and social media would all fall underneath one person, so for consistency. But at this current time, that PIO is still with Margarita, and she still continues to handle that process.
Yeah, but how much are we having of the public information? Because anything that happens with the police department is handled through the police themselves, handle the communication with the media. What else are we doing as far as the communication side? This
So-
is my question.
Yeah, on the city side, really, it would entail natural disaster elements. We've gotten quite a few media requests in the recent time. I know with our stormwater master plan, we got media inquiries on that. I just got one recently on the Sebastian Inlet Bridge. So on those things that I am leaning on Margarita to assist me with some verbiage and kind of reviewing those things so that, and then she's not the one going out there because they requested specifically me to speak on the items. But that's something that our future PIO would be the one that handles those discussions. And so that's where we currently are in our.
So we're looking at transitioning from her down to Avery's position once she gets trained. So Avery would be handling all of the communication from the city, anything that happens, natural disaster, events
Yes.
that happen with the police department, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll still, do those media interviews and things like that, but the PIO would be the on-call person that would handle that specifically.
Press releases and such.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Bob, got anything?
I understand. I know how all that works.
All right, so we'll move to non-departmental. This is the area of the budget that doesn't necessarily fall underneath one specific department, or it could fall underneath numerous ones, and it's just best for us to put it under non-departmental because really the purchases and everything go through our finance department. So this account saw an increase in personal services due to the adjustment for employees from an HRA account to an HSA account. This was based primarily on feedback that we received last year from employees and was a recommendation from our Employee Benefits Committee. The employees currently will see a $250 reduction in the city's contribution due to the new HSA plan. However, during meetings with employees, the new account did receive positive feedback. So just in full transparency on that, we currently, individual employees, if you covered under our benefits with employee only, we, in current fiscal year, provided $2,500 in an HRA account, and employee plus any dependents got $5,000. Our plan next year at the current time is individuals get $2,250, so a reduction $250 in an HSA account, and our employees plus dependents will get $4,750. So both of those elements saw a $250 decrease in the city's contribution with our transition to an HSA account from an HRA account. Within this budget, there are no capital expenditures in this account. Underneath operating, you will see that we have shown an increase in insurance. This covers the city's property, auto, liability accounts. We also included an additional funding of $20,000 for centennial expenses, just in case it is needed as we begin to prepare for the final birthday celebration, the full complete weekend of December 8th. And also employee events, we included funding for the employee picnic that we held this year. That was not a budgeted item last year. We had the funds to do it this year. We tried it out, and we're just trying to continue to provide something in addition for our employees to come out and socialize and be involved together. We also, underneath this account, we handle the 4th of July, those events, and the only item that we completely removed was memorial bricks. That's going to go underneath a memorial program within the Parks and Recreation Department. We're going to revitalize a memorial program. Instead of just doing bricks, we're going to do other things. So that, any questions on the non-departmental area?
I mean, in here it shows the proposed 24-25 budget for the HRAs at $525,000.
For the HSA, yes.
Yeah, well, it says HRA in here, but okay, HSAs.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
correct.
okay,
So,
but in the projected 23-24 was only 348. Is that a misnomer, or is that 23-24 not including something?
correct. So I'll have a discussion on that. So the HRA account was just a reimbursement account. We budget for a certain percentage of those funds to be expended. And currently under the HRA account, city staff can only use it for medical expenses. So in our budget numbers, we didn't budget 100% of expenses within that HRA account. Because reality is some people expend 100%, some people only expend 50% or 25%. Okay, so we typically take a general number and go from there. In the conversion over to an HSA account, the employees will now be allowed to use those dollars for medical, dental, and vision expenses. So there's a lot more items that are eligible underneath the IRS guidelines. That was the biggest complaint we got last year in our benefits discussion with them in regards to what issues they had in our benefits. I can't use the money the city gives me for dental, vision, and things as that such. And there's even some medical things that we were not allowed to use them for with the IRS guidelines. So with this, we have to fund it 100% on October 1st. So that's why this number is much higher, because now we have to budget the 100% funding number for
Right.
that.
I mean, in prior years, including 23, 24, we were not going to spend the entire amount because the employees were not going to use the entire amount.
Correct.
So we actually have a $75,000 increase in that line item, roughly $75,000 increase in that line item. I mean, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we understand that that's an increase in our benefit dollars.
Correct.
So we have to understand that we've actually increased, we've cut $2,500 each out of the amount of the account, which sounds like we're reducing something, but we're not. We're actually spending more money. The city is spending $75,000 a year more to provide that benefit than they were previously
Yes.
in that, so.
Yeah, and that was part of our thing with the employees, is that now that we're funding it 100%, I don't know that we can quite get to that total number that we had before. So that's why we reduced it down to $250 for family and for individuals. And that was, once again, a recommendation from the Benefits Committee.
Do we have any metrics on how many of the employees didn't use the total amount and what the difference was? Do we have any idea? No?
We can pull that information, though. We're still within the year, and as you get closer to the September timeframe, it's a use it or lose it HRA account.
Yeah.
So you will see some additional funds being expended.
Yeah.
So it's always that end of year.
My thing is really simple. We got part union employees and part not. And if we increase a benefit by $75,000 a year, we're increasing the concepts we have under a union contract as well, because a union contract includes these things in it. So I'm just concerned. I'm not concerned about the money. I just want to make sure that we've got ourselves straight on that, because we're going to go into union negotiations next year.
Correct.
So,
And so the union doesn't specifically reference HRA, HSA at all. It only references that the city has to cover 60% of the health insurance premiums.
okay.
Correct
I'm
me
good
if
with
I'm
that.
wrong, it's been a while since I've had an HSA option with my family, but can they not also use those accounts for like simple things like Band-Aids
Yes.
and cough syrup and things like that? Okay.
Yes, that's all
Just making
falls
sure
underneath
they
the IRS
understand that, so
guidelines.
they're actually using those funds that they now have.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the use it or lose it philosophy in that sometimes forces people to go out and buy 10 million Band-Aids at the end of the year. So
Yeah,
pass them around the neighborhood as trick or treat.
getting all the Benadryl they can. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mark.
If they don't, they're gonna lose it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think in all reality, the conversion from an HRA to an HSA, I feel as though we will be better stewards of the taxpayers' money, because it's not a use it or lose it on an HSA, it does roll over.
True.
And people will use those for medical, dental, vision, and not just it's September, use it or lose it, let's go buy a bunch of
Right.
Band-Aids.
Right.
Very smart thing to let some of it roll over, because you never know when you have a major expense.
Correct.
You're gonna get hit with big
And
big
we have
copays.
the health initiative we're trying to do with the
Yes.
city employees as well. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
so are you still, you're good with your non-departmental? Because there's something else I want to talk about under non-departmental, if you're finished, Mr. Bent.
Yes, sir.
You are? So, just for the council, the chamber has a gala coming up. It's the Roaring Twenties. And, this is our 100th anniversary, and they're celebrating, so.
I sent Brian a thing on that yesterday.
Did you?
yeah.
So, I'm looking to see if the city can be a sponsor, and that's what I'm thinking. I think we have the money in the budget, or Brian can find the money in the budget to be a sponsor. This
That's
gets our
actually this
name out there a lot more for the centennial and everything else, so.
Correct. Yes, what we can do is we can, if you all are in agreement, I think the amount was either $1,500 or $3,000, so it's, it's one of those numbers, as a sponsorship that we can look at identifying and go from there, and if you all are in agreement with that.
Yeah, but that's not the 24, 25 budget.
Correct.
That's
Now
the
that
current year
That's the
budget.
we're
current,
thinking about it, we will have to
Budget,
find it
yeah.
in this current fiscal year's budget.
Right.
I was going to bring that up on Wednesday night.
Oh.
See if he wanted to.
No, because we can talk about it
Jumping
now.
the gun.
Now I don't have to talk Wednesday.
Okay.
Chris, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good. You've all raised the concerns
All right.
that I had. My
Thank you.
camera just popped.
Now we can see him. He put a shirt on so we can see him now. All right, thanks, Brian.
Anyone else on non-departmental? Just making sure.
No.
Okay. All right, so we will now move into community development and CRA. So we have Alex Bernard here, and I'm assuming we'll get started with community development first.
Good morning. So I believe everything starts on community development on page 85, and you can see what has been accomplished in fiscal year 24, what our goals and objectives are for fiscal year 25. Brian said to be prepared with our projects and capital outlay, so I'll just tell you some of the things that we have on the radar. Currently, the first thing in capital outlay is our CDBG grant funding. We are currently, that's on page 88. We are currently in our 5th year of that. We are going through renewing this process for the next 5-year grant.
What? Something buzzing or something?
No, somebody's talking.
Oh,
Like whispering.
that must be Chris's mic. Maybe there's some conversation going on.
No, I'm muted.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Jeanette, was there something over there?
Feedback loop?
Feedback from what's going on here. You
Okay.
can hear
Well, here,
somebody talking.
everybody turn their mic off.
Briefly, but not right now. I know, I was listening to what you were saying.
All right, we're good.
Okay, so currently we are in our 5th year. You hear it again.
That's your voice. It's got reverb, something you're hearing.
So we are in our 5th year of our CDG grant program. We are starting to do our next consolidated plan for the next 5 years. Right now, we're projected at 130. This year, this amount kind of fluctuates. So we're looking, probably, this is a very high number as far as what we're seeing. Our last, I think, stipend we got from HUD was, I want to say it was like $128,000. And so we're working through that process. On Wednesday night's meeting, you will see, oh no, we pulled that. So you'll see that that's one of our capital outlay projects over the next 5 years from community development. In addition, we have some other ones. The working waterfront expansion, which you're very excited about, trying to program and just continue the goodness with that. I think everybody's familiar with the working waterfront and the good works we're trying to do there. So the idea is that we have $250,000 programmed over the next 3 years, and this will help to look at renovating things like we're not calling it Hurricane Harbor, and bringing those projects back to life. We have a lot of grant funding that's also been put into the works to match this money. The next project on our list is pedestrian crossings. This is to put in more flashing pedestrian crossings strategically on Indian River Drive. So not at every 10 feet, but strategically where we see spots that are needed. Captain Hiram's is one that we've discovered that flashers are probably needed, kind of like what you see in front of the Tiki Bar right now. So that's the model that we're following, and so the estimate for that is about $5,000. The other thing that we currently have programmed for next budget year is a dry line at the working waterfront. So this is at Fisherman's Landing. We applied for grant funding with the FIND program, and so this would be considered the match for that. We do not have official word back from FIND, but I will tell you when we did our presentations in Cocoa Beach 3 weekends ago, all of our projects seem to be received very favorably. And so I think that that's a positive, and we will hear some positive news in September. So, and then North Central Avenue, that's programmed way out. So we just want to keep that on our radar for future reference and make sure that that doesn't fall off. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we're programming for next fiscal year.
Combine the CRA presentation with community development.
Well,
So some of the projects are funded by CRA, so if you want to go ahead and join them together, we can. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, in the working waterfront expansion, we've got the $500,000 over 3 years. That's, I guess my question is that we're talking about working waterfront expansion, trying to do multiple things, possibly getting our submersible land lease extended so we can put more dock space. That's going to cost $500,000 probably to do.
Is Ed's microphone turned on?
Sorry. Plus the expansion of the, maybe expansion of the parking lot a little bit, clean it up because it's a mess, and maybe stop letting employees from restaurants up the river park there all the time, kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. But so I was just questioning whether, and I know FIND has got, you've applied for some FIND grant money for this, and is this our match money, or is this $500,000 a year what you anticipate spending on that?
I can answer that. So that's the anticipated expense amount. The money that is shown in the community development budget is what the city's matching portion
match
is.
money.
Yeah.
So once you get to the back when the CRA fund, we include anticipated grant funding here. So that is included, and you are correct. We are currently right now working with Coastal Wide, who is one of our consultants, and they are, I think, at 80%.
We're at 80% drawings right now.
Drawings
so-
for the working waterfront expansion on the water side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that expansion in regards to our commercial fishing industry and expansion of dock space and availability for them.
Now, is that, maybe it's time to, is that engineering work a separate project from the actual expansion work, or is that done basically under a general budget category? Where you set up an engineering project to do the design work for expansion of the docks. Is that a separate project that is traced and?
That's what the $120,000 that you see in FY 23-24.
Okay, all
So
right.
that's in this current fiscal year.
So we anticipate being done if they're at 80%?
It's going to be close. I don't know that we can get it completely back and everything finalized with comments and stuff by the end of the fiscal year, but it will be hopefully by the end of the calendar year, we'll have the design finalized, because we also are including Fisherman's Landing in this discussion, and they've had a say in the design, so we're continuing to involve them as we go through the process, because we don't want to, I'm not a professional commercial fisherman, and I don't want to think something is a great idea in a design, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't work for them.
Right.
So we've included them throughout the process.
I mean, that's a great idea. My concern is that everything that we've talked about and haven't really gotten to a consensus on or a vote on about that working waterfront process with Hurricane Harbor, it's going to cost us more than $1.5 million. And the question is, are we adequately budgeting here for the possibility of what we're going to have to do? This is something people are going to look at real strong, primarily because of what's going on at Hurricane Harbor.
Of course.
So
And it is going to cost us more than $1.5 million. So should we consider the possibility of upping these dollar amounts in anticipation of that? I know you're smiling because you don't want to impact the budget that way, but
No, so I think, the thought process on that is we have not formally made a determination on what's going to happen with the building. So we do not formally really have any dollars budgeted at this current time. The 1.5 million that's shown in there, A lot of that's going to be expended on the working waterfront dock expansion,
Right.
submerged land lease. So I know we have applied for a cultural grant, I believe, to do some, to get a architectural firm to come in, provide us with a final determination on that building. And then at that time, we will come back to you all and say, what do you want us to do with the building?
That leads me to my next question.
Okay.
Down at the bottom of the schedules, you've got a structural engineering consultant for $80,000. Is that an engineer to do additional structural engineering work on Hurricane Harbor, or is that just a general purpose contract?
That's specifically for Hurricane Harbor.
Okay, so at the completion of that, he's answering for you.
I know, hey, it makes it easy.
He's
You're
on the
taking
ball.
away all of our glory, you know that, don't you? So the anticipation is that at the completion of that, in the 24-25 budget year, we should have enough information to begin the process of talking about what we can and cannot do with that building, because that's going to drive the design and going to drive all that kind of stuff. Is that-
Correct. That's the goal. And it is our hope that we get funded by Division of Historic Resources with the state, and that they help champion that cause to see about preservation or reconstruction, or, yes.
So my next question, and it's a simpler one, I think, should we not separate working waterfront expansion from Hurricane Harbor and have a line item here for Hurricane Harbor?
If you all are comfortable with the verbiage of Hurricane Harbor, we can do that. We've tried to keep the working waterfront element, because it all technically is still working waterfront.
I know.
And so we've tried to keep those elements together, because also when we go for grant funding, or if we had a recent discussion about looking to possibly approach someone for an appropriation type situation for the building element, I want to make sure that we're not completely separating those pieces. But I think what we can do in here is we can probably identify it as working waterfront building, and then working waterfront dockage or waterfront area.
Yeah,
those
Some way,
that's
to-
just helpful.
some way so there's a line item in here
Yes.
so
We can do that.
people can see where and so
Differentiate
forth.
between the
Definitely
two.
do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is we can't really make any decisions about the property Hurricane Harbor until at least past the end of this month, when the official contract is done. Isn't the contract up at the end of this month?
Yes.
Right, so we can't really do much with that as far as that. But, I mean, obviously, we can look to the future and plan for things as well, but.
We own the building, they're a leasee. We can
Yeah.
make decisions about the building
Well,
anytime.
I know, but I'm just saying for,
I've totally separated that
yeah.
from this in my mind. It no longer exists. That whole
Right.
time no longer exists.
So if I
Our
can
problem is we have a building.
interject.
Chris, do you have something to say?
Yeah, if I can interject. Well, first, it's important for public reasons to identify the property we're talking about as Fisherman's Landing. And I'm not being picky, but it is Fisherman's Landing, and Fisherman's Landing has two parts to its project. It has a building that serves as a museum and snack bar, and it has docks that serve as commercial fishing docks. So I think separating the two out into parts is important, because it helps identify what we're referring to, but it's important that we identify this as Fisherman's Landing. And I said, it's not semantics, but we're not talking about a Hurricane Harbor or any other business that has been in that building. We're talking about the project that we have lots of grant funding in the past for, and grant funding in the future, and that is the Fisherman's Landing project. And I think it's important for public reasons that we continue to try to identify it so they don't get confused. And I'm not saying they will, but they have already. So as far as the $1.5 million grant, when is that going to be used? Is that going to be used next budget year, not this upcoming budget year? Because if that's a matching grant, so in order for us to use that, we have to have $1.5 million to match that. So are we budgeting for that money for next budget year, or are we going to have some money in this budget year for that? So I'll let you answer now.
I think you might be confused. I don't want to get confused with the $1.5 million grant that I sent out via email yesterday. That's not for this project. We have gone for numerous grants, fine grants, and a couple others that will subsidize, hopefully if we get them, the $1.5 million that is budgeted out through the next 3 fiscal years that you show in the CRA. I think that project's probably going to carry over a little bit of time, depending on what has to be done with the expansion of the dockage, because that specific area is the dockage. And we are showing those funds here, because if we don't get the grant, then, you know, we'll obviously have to make some different adjustments to the design to reduce the cost, because we are showing CRA funding in the amount of $750,000. But hopefully with the addition of grant funding, we get it up to the 1.5 million. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that money is specifically earmarked for the expansion of the fisherman's dock, the fisherman's landing commercial docks.
Correct.
All right, just one more question. I said one more a minute ago, but sewer connection program, and you got an asterisk beside it, and I couldn't find it, a note. There may be there, but my old eyes couldn't find it. We've got $128,000 in 24-25. Are we intending to try to reopen that program? Because as far as I know, it's sunsetted.
What page are
That's
you
in
on,
the
Ed?
schedules, 189.
189.
189?
Yeah, and it's up, if you
It's
look
all
at 24-25 and drop down, it's like the second thing after the revenue, after the revenue total on that line. It's $128,000, and it's, am I lining that right up? Wait a minute. I guess I need to get a piece
you
of
need
paper
like
to
a
make sure I
ruler.
got my lines worked out right here. No, yeah, that's the sewer connection program. And I didn't know whether we were thinking about reopening that or
Sorry, because I think, you know, we had to, due to getting this budget document out as quickly as we did, we minimized a lot of our zones down
Yeah,
here.
that's fine.
So I'll need to follow back up with you on that one, on what
Okay,
exactly, because that's just a weird number there
Yeah.
that I need to recall what our discussions were on that.
Okay, because I just don't think that we need to reopen that grant program we had, given the fact that we're trying to do some pressurized things to actually do the CRA.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. And so,
Because it'll confuse issues if we do that. So, you can follow up on that. It's just that when we get to the budget reading in front of the council, you know, later on, we need to make sure that 128,000 isn't sitting there for.
Yeah, you may have just found some money.
And before we get off of this, I want to, community development is doing a great job. I want to thank,
Yes.
especially the grant program you're going after, the work you're doing. You're adding a planner, which I hope will help
yes.
get through the process. And the stuff in the CRA is working well. So I'm extremely happy personally, with what's in the budget and where we're going. So, anybody else?
I'm good, thank you.
And one thing I just want to add on that, I know that we didn't discuss positions, but within community development, we do have a current open position. The plan is, once we complete the addition or the renovation, I guess I should say, within the community development department, which hopefully should be done within the next couple months. I think they're tentatively starting sometime in the middle of August with that renovation. We'll then fill that position. We just do not have the office space down there right now to add someone and we don't have anywhere to put them. So that renovation, once it takes place, we'll look to start to add an additional employee in community development, which is in this current fiscal year. It's carrying over to next fiscal year. So that's our current plan.
And, you know, Sustainable Sebastian has kind of done a nosedive, in my opinion. It's not, and I know there's a lot of work that's been done, especially by your staff, on trying to get a plan put together to do it and so forth. I think it's an important thing for us to try to step forward on even harder if we can.
So we are currently in our last year, so it's a 5-year plan. We're currently in our last year and actually our last few months of Sustainable Sebastian. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about with the Natural Resources Board in the next few months is, okay, this is what we've accomplished. What are our goals and objectives for the next 5 years? So we've done this. What's next? What's the next step in that? And so that's something that we'll be bringing before the Natural Resources Board in the next few months.
Because, I mean, we haven't, a lot of the stuff that started that program, things like Litter Quitter and all those kinds of things, we really haven't progressed on trying to do something with that. And then I'm an old guy, I don't like to cook, so I go out to eat a lot. And there's a lot of restaurants in Vero that don't use plastic straws, and they don't give you styrofoam takeout things, and they don't do that kind of stuff. I don't think there's any active program in Vero to do that, so it's the restaurants doing it on their own. The question is, why are we not, to me, that's the kind of stuff that program, Sustainable Sebastian, shouldn't die. It needs to become more intrusive and get involved in more stuff, so.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, but as far as, some of that sustainable, stuff, talking about not plastic here, bags and all that, the problem is gonna come with mandating somebody to do stuff. That's gonna
You can't
increase
mandate.
costs and everything else, but that's what scares me about some of that. But the other thing is, with the sustainable, Sebastian, whenever I make a post, for example, put out something in the morning, I put hashtag sustainable Sebastian. And I think the reason I was doing that is because I wanted that to catch on so people can go to that hashtag sustainable Sebastian and see some of the initiatives, but other people have to put things in. There needs to be more input. And I think if we can highlight that a little bit more from our perspective here at the city, from our social media side and others, so that we can kind of revive that a little bit as well with other people coming in and putting information in there under hashtag sustainable Sebastian. I think that would make a big difference as far as reviving that and let people know about sustainable Sebastian, so.
And I know Avery would be all over that.
Yeah. We'll definitely work in partnership.
Yeah.
Very nice. Anybody else got anything for? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
You're free to go. Your sentence is over.
No, you're on standby.
Yeah, this is
subject to
yeah.
recall.
You're on probation. Report to your probation officer later.
Thank you, guys.
Does anybody need to take a break? Because we are ahead of schedule if anybody needs to take a break. Okay.
No, I don't, but I am.
We'll take like a 5-minute break and then.
It's his wiggle break.
Okay, it's 9:43:38. We come back together at 9:44:41.
No, I just wanted to give Jeanette an opportunity to get prepared because she's been over there diligently taking notes and all the other stuff that she has.
Give her fingers a rest.
That's a minute and a half of your break.
It's okay. I can stay here the whole break then. I don't care.
I'm just kidding, Fred. Okay.
What, I'm open to what you're thinking.
Okay.
I mean, I can speak if you.
Go ahead. That's fine.
So, in last year's budget, we did have a deputy city clerk position underneath the city clerk's office. That has been changed to an administrative assistant position. So you will see that adjustment that is made underneath the personnel in the clerk's budget. And then also, really, the increase that is shown totally in the city clerk's budget has to do with anticipation of.
Yeah, Brian, is your mic on?
Oh, sorry, I apologize. I thought I talked loud enough you could hear me. Sorry. Really, the only change in their budget is having positions a full year and negotiated pay increases and insurance cost increases. Decrease due to election year costs because, as we all know, in an even year, the election costs are lower. That's really the only changes. And then underneath their operating, there wasn't anything major in there. Jeanette had requested the chairs. However, we moved that into this fiscal year to get that done immediately.
Okay.
If we can go back to the personnel, we're going to start interviewing for the administrative assistant position, so.
And you've got
Okay.
money in this year's budget. It's under
that position.
deputy, but you've got money in this year's budget to hire before
Yes,
September, so
yes.
that shouldn't be a problem. Okay. I don't have any questions on the clerks. Anybody got any questions?
So is the plan still for the future to have the deputy city clerk?
No, I think that's going to drop off. Won't that drop off?
Yeah, so you can
You're just
see-
going to only have the assistant and record specialist, right? So we're no longer looking at having a deputy city clerk.
I think and I don't want to speak for Jeanette, but I think probably the long-term plan is once you get an administrative assistant and they learn the operations, years down the road or at some point, that potentially could be something we look at. But I think in the immediate, it's only going to be recognized and in the budget going forward as an administrative assistant.
One thing that I thought about is you're hiring an administrative assistant. We have a short window. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we have a short window between today and when you plan on retiring. In reality, on what it takes for a person to learn to be a city clerk. We have 2 employees in your staff that could potentially apply for that job. It's always been my preference in that position that we try to promote from within because, I don't know whether there's advantages or disadvantages to going outside and bringing in a knowledgeable city clerk, whether it would help or not help to do that. But I think promoting from within, when Sally left, you were promoted. I think it provides benefits because you're aware of the operation and you know what's been going on. So I didn't see any training money in there to start getting somebody involved in maybe the city clerks associations, doing things like that might begin the process of training, of a transitional training or succession planning, if you want to call it that. What do you think?
We can do some webinars and stuff like that. I'm not sure if the Florida Association of City Clerks will let administrative assistants in, but I can check on that.
Do they have courses that you could go to?
Yeah.
Are they charged? Yeah.
There's separate webinars and stuff like that, so.
So, I mean, it might be appropriate to try to put some training dollars. Maybe that's the next year's budget because
Right.
you're talking about just now hiring now, so maybe that's the next year's budget.
Yes.
Making
Well,
sure there's a good fit
You're
first.
like Ken, we're not going to let you retire until you force us to.
So I don't have an end date, you guys. Let me just put that out there. Everybody's asking me, when are you going? I don't know. I really don't know.
And I know you all don't see as far down into the detail that we have on our budget documents that the department heads submit. But I will say Jeanette did, looking ahead at that area, she did request funding. So if you look in training and education and dues and memberships, she did request some, FACC,
What
which
page
is
is that on, 23?
23. The
Okay.
Florida Association of City Clerks. She does have some dollars in there that can be utilized for the administrative assistant that she outlined.
Thank you, Brian.
So she has, thought ahead on that. And then I think, once the person comes on board, there's always that first year of really trying to figure out how much it costs to go to these conferences and do those things. So we may see that, in the following fiscal year, we need to increase that, but I know that she did allocate dollars towards that.
Right, so in the succession planning for your department, are we looking at possibly the administrative assistant or one of those being primed for the position of clerk?
It's not,
Too early to
let's see,
tell.
let's see how it goes.
Yes.
Right,
Let's see how it goes.
because I mean, I think it's very important to start somebody down here, and at some point, we're not going to have, our clerk is not going to be with us. Is the plan to keep moving someone else up, sending them, getting training, education, and bringing them to that level, so when that time comes, they can just move right in and become the city clerk, so.
Not to put words in her mouth, but I think based on her last experience, she would like to just get someone in the door, make sure this
see
works
how it
out.
goes.
And then maybe
Yeah.
promote to
Yeah.
deputy clerk,
Yeah.
see how that goes.
I think that's a good-
And then
I
work
think-
in that, towards that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And also, it gives you an opportunity to spend 1, 2, 3, 4, whenever you decide you're going to do your
Yeah.
years, training someone to make that
Right.
transition.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hopefully, we'll be able to do that, so
I would say the
So-
possibility is there.
I'm comfortable with that.
If I could,
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may. So my concern is, and I'm probably right there with you on this, with what Councilmember Jones was just saying, but with my discussion with both Jeanette and Kathy, it sounds like I'll say their retirement time or plans are similar in time frame. Like it's not too far out, but far enough out that we're not worried about it today. But that succession planning, and I get that the last situation maybe did not go well with where we went with the last person, but I guess I'm just concerned. Why, and maybe this is stepping out of my line, telling me if it is, but why did we scrap the deputy clerk and go for administrative assistant instead? Did we just not have the candidates out there to fill that position?
So when we did advertise for deputy city clerk, we did not get any certified clerks or experienced clerks. So that was a concern. And then going on to,
Is your mic on?
yes, and then
Oh,
going
okay,
on to the getting this person on board and getting them used to the office and to the duties and the things that are going to happen in a city clerk's office, this person could move into it. So, and also, if it comes down to it and you need to hire like a headhunter for city clerk, I've seen that happen too. So you could go outside and pick someone nationwide who's going to be certified and ready and boots on the ground to go.
Okay.
So that's just our thoughts. But I'm hoping that this administrative assistant person will get the hang of our office running, our duties, the procedures, the things that need to happen.
Okay, without the stress of being a deputy clerk and then having the ability to learn the process to see if it's something they're interested in as well. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for reminding me about that training money I put in there. I forgot about that. I'm nervous.
Anything else? City clerk? All right, how about city council?
All right, Jeanette, since you just said you were nervous, I'll let you cover the city council one.
Thank you, I am nervous. Okay, so there's no capital in city council, and just depending on who qualifies and who comes in, that's going to change a little bit of the training and exercises in your travel. But the one thing I did find for you guys is the CRA 101 class, which I hear is a really good class in Tampa, and that's about $500, and that's going to be in October. So that's a change for you guys.
Okay.
And I'm open, if you guys have anything else you want to.
Are you including the money we spend for, I'll call it, the travel we do, like to Tallahassee and stuff like that? Are you including that as part of your training budget?
So there's a registration fee, which is training, and then the travel comes into the travel.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm
that
talking about
is-
like the stuff we're doing with Florida League of Cities, for example.
So I have Legislative Action Day, Legislative Policy Committees,
Okay.
and Legislative Conference.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I'll say this, as we're all aware, we know travel and expenses are continue to go up. So that's where you'll see, those increases there. But Jeanette has done a good job of trying to capture the costs that are expended year over year in regards to attendance at each of those legislative things with the League of Cities and
Yeah.
all of those activities.
That's the reason if you look at it, you see the jump between like 22 and 23 and 23, 24 for travel and per diem and some of that is, we've been doing a lot more stuff with the legislature and with other bodies to try to facilitate bringing the city stuff forward to those people, and that's being covered under this city council budget.
In the Florida League of Cities, they have, they did EMO 1, EMO 2, and then they did the leadership class, which you guys went to. And there might be leadership 2, and there might be leadership 3, but they don't have it developed yet.
Right.
So,
The one area that I did want to bring up, in you all having a discussion on is promotional activities. So, oftentimes we get, promotional things whenever you all go to conferences. This year's been a good one because you've had the centennial items to give away when you go places. But is that something you all would like to see an increase in that and be able to have items that, you all can give away when you go places, or when we host meetings here, you have things that recognize and advertise the city? Because we currently don't really, you can look at the budget for promotional activities. We've got $950, I think, in there. And, we use that for golf cart signs for parades, lapel pins, outgoing plaques and things like that. We don't really line item anything that could be used as promotional items.
I like swag, personally. It's nice to have, these are great pins, the 100th anniversary pins. It's nice to have pins. We used to have some cities, Sebastian mark pins, for example. We don't have those. So things like that, hats, shirts, little things that we can do to give away or to advertise the city when we go to these conferences and stuff are, I think it's important. It lets people know you're not one of the old backdoor cities. You're coming up in the world or something. I don't know.
the pens are refillable, sustainable.
It's refillable?
Yeah,
How do you refill? Oh, you mean you've
you
got,
can unscrew it.
Nice.
aha,
Oh, yeah, the ink, yeah.
Yeah.
I love these pens.
I do too. They write so well.
They write very nice.
Well, I
they're
didn't
comfortable.
know they were refillable.
Sustainable, yes.
Yes, well,
So-
perhaps we need to
So,
know
yeah.
where the refills
Then
are.
it should be
So-
sustainable things, because the last thing I need is another T-shirt or more junk.
Well,
So
yeah.
I think if we go along the lines of sustainable or eco-friendly, since Sebastian is known for being like a nature-loving town, then I'm okay with it. Otherwise, I say save the money, personally.
And maybe, I think that's a good idea. Maybe we need things that are, if it falls under sustainable Sebastian, maybe that swag falls under the community
Maybe it's
development
a
department.
metal straw with City of Sebastian on it that you keep in your purse. Something that goes along with the vibe and our strategic plan.
Yeah, one of the things I went to with Florida League of Cities, I got a little canvas bag. It's about this big, little round. It has a metal straw in it with a cleaning brush, and you screw it together when you use it, and then you clean it. Those kind of things. And we
Yeah.
could put City of Sebastian, Sustainable Sebastian, or something
Right.
on that. You could do something like that.
Exactly. Something
Yeah.
along those lines. I'm okay with.
And like the little sunscreen thing I got from, I think that was City of Port St. Lucie. Little thing that had a bottle of sunscreen and a thing of lip
Lip balm.
sunscreen on it connected together, those.
Something useful.
And it was Port St. Lucie Parks Department is what it was. It was under the Parks Department. They probably give those out to the kids and stuff when
Right.
they have things, in the parks, so.
So will you help me with a number there? If it goes there?
Yeah, we'll look at it, we'll see what's out there and see if it falls underneath this budget, and if it does,
Keep it under
We can-
$1,000.
yeah, okay.
Under 1,000.
Yeah. I know.
How much swag is he gonna get for $100?
No, I said keep it under 1,000.
Not much. I mean, you've had some experience with the Centennial on buying
I don't
and
go
what the
many
cost
places,
is.
I'm working so
We
much,
do, we
but
can shop
he
around
can
and,
bring it around.
Yeah.
I would take a look at the cost because it's already at $950 and, for 5 people to give away swag, to various people, $1,000 doesn't go long in a full year. So I think look and see what's out there, what you're thinking, and then we can adjust that number as needed.
Bob, what do you have to say? I'm reading your body language.
Next. Next.
No, I'm good. I mean, it's, how often are you gonna meet somebody you're gonna date? You're probably gonna keep it in your trunk of your car, in the bag. So, you know, I think it's, you know, like we always do now, when we go to League of Cities, you give us a bunch of pins, you wanna give the pins out. You know, the challenge coin's a nice coin, but, you know, that can be a little bit pricey, handing out. How many of them are you? So, I like the idea of the straw. I mean, that's, you know, because then that lasts.
Right, exactly.
Well, like the Treasure Coast League of Cities has a training session for all newly elected council members at the end of every election cycle. It'd be nice for Sebastian, for us to go there and be able to say to newly elected council members, here's Sebastian, you know, here's some business cards for our manager if you want to talk to him and so forth. Here's, you know, here's a couple of nice little swaggy things, because it gets it out and it gets the whole flow of information going, so.
But at these events that most of us attend, we're seeing the same people. So that's why I'm saying I don't think we need a ton.
No.
Because, you know, we do go to events, but we see a lot of the same people.
Well, we'll keep all those comments in mind. We'll start small and start with a smaller, we'll do an additional amount in here of about $1,000. Look at that, start small, and then we can revisit it as we go forward. I just know that it's been something that's come up as in discussions, and people have asked for more swag and things like that, so.
Thank you.
Okay, are we done with the council? Now we're on to HR. Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Jeanette.
You can move now, Cindy.
Patiently waiting over there.
And in preparation, Human Resources is going to be on page 38.
38. Roger that.
All right, Cindy, you got it.
I have it. Well, this current year is the first year that Human Resources Risk Management actually had its own budget. We were always tied into finance. So this next coming year, you know, I had a chance to add to some of the training that I would like to provide for the employees. But HR this year had established 3 different committees. One, as Brian mentioned, the Budget Committee. And I really want to thank them. They have been involved and made really good recommendations. Benefits Committee, yeah. Benefits Committee. And they've made some very good recommendations. So I really applaud them. The Performance Review Committee is another committee that was established. We've had a very old performance review process, form. So the committee established a brand new performance review along with the process and policy. So we're in the process of testing that now. It will go into the computer system and proceed for signatures. The third was we brought back the Safety Committee. And they're in the process of various training. We brought Florida League in and had them help out with some of the training of some of the committee members. So those are committees that have really helped in the process. The one item, succession planning, that I've talked about, directors have talked about, you have all talked about it. And this is something that we really need here. We have employees that we put into roles that don't have the education or the training to advance. So I am bringing a company in that will provide educational services, not just to the directors, but I have 25 slots. And this isn't just a one-day training. It is a whole year's worth. So they come in and in person for the first day, and then after that, they go into what's called either togethers or pods, and they watch videos. They have discussions with the pods, and I think the employees will learn and learn how to make decisions, problem solve, become leaders, which is what we want. And through this process, they'll learn, they'll have mentors because of the directors. And so I'm very excited about bringing this company in.
Who is the company?
It's called BTS USA. The part of the part of the expense will be in this year, and part will be next year. So you'll see this coming to council in August.
Is that within the 23,500 that we've got in the
Yes.
budget? So that covers
That's
that?
part of it. Mhm.
Okay. And is the employee time for that accounted for in each of their departments?
As far as, what do you mean?
As far as attending?
Yes,
yeah,
yes. I
as far
mean,
as-
we will.
So that's all handled within each individual department?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Are they going to produce like a succession planning map, if you want to call it that? I mean, a succession plan involves organizational chart definition. For each position that has management responsibility, you have a second name there, and that name is, or names, those would be the people in your succession plan for that particular position. I mean, so you've identified those, then you identify the training that they need to get in order to be able to move into that position, and you set up a program by which they get the training. I mean, that's, so I'm assuming this company, this BTS USA, is going to do that, set up the training for that. Go ahead.
Well, the training itself is more to prepare them. We'll, as far as directors, we'll go in and we'll look what background does that person have? What do they need for them to advance? And I think that's part of the directors. They're not consultants in that way. It's from an educational standpoint to start to get them learning how to problem solve, how to make decisions, and how to lead a group of people, because
So
right now they don't have that.
the directors are going to nominate people to take this training?
Yes. So I think the one thing, that we have is that maybe our second in command in certain departments is also on their way out, like they're close to that. So if we were to take this company, they would come back and they would identify, well, you got a director and you got a superintendent, we need a superintendent to attend. But maybe the superintendent isn't really someone that we need to attend this program. Okay, so it's going to be part of succession planning, but the director is going to identify the employees that need to attend the leadership training in those sections. Because it may not always be just a second in command that attends this, because they may see someone who is a level or two lower that says, hey, this person's really, that they're driven, they want to move up, there's someone that I think could be the next in line, and they would be the ones attending this program.
Yeah,
So it's not just going to be the next person down.
Yeah, because true succession planning doesn't guarantee that the number two guy becomes the number one guy.
Correct, absolutely.
It identifies the individuals within the management chain that have the skills and potentially what you have to do to make sure they can move up. I mean, it's not unusual to move a number 3 or a number 4 in front of a number 2.
Yes.
In succession planning, it sometimes makes the number 2 decide not to be there any longer, but that's the way it works.
Right.
you know, so.
And it will not be driven from Cindy or myself. The department heads know their staff. They know who has the ability, who's driven, who wants to, improve themselves. They're going to be the ones that designate the people from their departments.
And then once they do that, is that going to go into some type of a corporate overall succession planning structure that is, I mean, you put together an organizational chart, you put together a succession planning chart that matches all of that?
We would and acknowledge the employees that have gone through the leadership program and identify their future pathway to being able to move up within that area. Yes.
Yeah, I think the beauty of that is you're talking about succession plan, and for me, it's not necessarily having some chart saying, we're going to start with this person, this one is going to move to number 2, this one's going to move there. I think the most important thing is to make sure that the people below that department head understands what's going on, how to work through all these different issues, have the necessary training for in the future. If they want to move in that position and work towards it, at least they've been offered the opportunity to have that training necessary to move into that next spot. So it's very important to have that training,
Right.
I believe, to help move things forward and not have a list of names and go, oh, you're going to be second, third, or fourth, because I think that throws a big monkey wrench into everything. But making sure all of the people within the department are trained, and the ones that want to move to that next level take the next level of training, so that when that time comes, they can move right in there, and then we keep moving forward as a city. So,
If I could, so I agree that succession planning is important, and I believe there are 2 levels of succession planning. There's succession for keeping the business running if the director is to leave. And then there's succession planning for who will take that person's place down the road. I think I'll pick on IT because I'm an IT guy for a second. To be an IT director, there's no necessary specific required degrees or things like that to be that person. It has a lot more experience, maybe some certifications and things that help with it, but there's no specific. But I guess like an HR director or finance director, you need specific degrees, and maybe even as being a registered accountant to be, say the finance director. So as well as we can have succession for how to plan, which this training sounds wonderful for that, how to plan for a situation if we had a director that wasn't here tomorrow, could the business continue without them being there? That's important. That doesn't necessarily mean that person will take that place. They may not have the necessary legal qualifications. Is this succession planning part of the strategic plan when you have those discussions with them? Is this in that?
So we haven't made any formal decisions on the strategic plan. I want to be careful. I mean, yes, we understand succession planning is a priority, but I just don't want to get into saying, yes, we've aligned it with a strategic plan when it hasn't been developed yet. So yes, that is part of our thought process, but we necessarily haven't developed the goals and objectives for the strategic plan.
Right. We didn't make it to that point yet, but this is definitely something that's being thought about. And
Yes.
brought up. So, awesome. Perfect.
One more swag comment. Are we giving out safety award swag, like, I don't know, not necessarily cups because everybody's getting our 100-year anniversary cups, but I don't know, maybe a little lunch box that's self-contained or something that says safety award, 1 year without, or 2 years, or something within our crews or within our groups. I mean, those things seem to be kind of meaningful to people, I got this because I'm on a crew that hasn't had an accident in 12 months or something like that.
I can always look into that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But our safety training actually is, I use Florida League since that's our carrier, and they come up and handle all of our safety training for us without cost. So whatever I can get from them, I use their services.
That's just another one of those little recognition things to the staff that, hey, you work on a crew that's been a year without an accident or 6 months without an accident. I don't know what the time break would be on it, but something.
Usually a year.
Yeah.
A year.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because you can see that the employees are proud to walk around with, and every other employee wouldn't know that this person had it. That's, it's a great, definite tool for promoting safety.
That's just, that's just more money, that's all.
Yeah.
To the budget.
And I'm trying to stay
Okay. That's-
very lean and mean here. Really, the rest of my budget, other than training, it's very minimal increase.
So this is the first time you've had to do one, so things will go a lot better in the future years to
Yes.
come, right? So.
Yes. I've moved some dollars around this year so we could start the process of, the training, leadership, decision-making, and all of that for this year. But next year, I think I'd put the money where it needs to be, so.
Who is doing the city's policies and procedure manual? Is that, I know you've got a line item in there to do your human resources policies and procedures. Who's doing the city's?
So I'll take responsibility for this one, and Cindy's smiling at me. Cindy has done a lot of policy changes, and within that also the employee handbook type situation. It's in my hands to review. So I will fall on that one and say that it's in my responsibility. She's done a lot of changes. I got to say that she probably updates somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 different policies a month based on direction that's given, and looking at different things and things that will promote morale and doing things for our employees, better situations and stuff like that. But the employee handbook has been on my desk, and I have not reviewed it yet.
Okay.
But she has completed the entire handbook. I believe it's pretty much finalized, with the exception of my final review on that. But policy-wise, I mean, like I said, it's probably 8 to 10 policies a month that we're reviewing, revising, and as times change, because a lot of things are changing right now, and we're constantly reviewing and changing policies.
Because I know when I first got on council, I was handed a manual. It was called our policy manual. And I don't think that thing's been maintained. And so is the intent, when you talk about human resources policies, there's probably other policies that's in there, or is the intent to kind of mold all that together?
So the employee handbook is the one priority that we have right now, and policy changes. And when she says human resources policy changes, it's basically citywide policy changes that are being done by human resources. There will be some that are specific to human resources, but it's kind of a work in progress to get through them all and kind of bring all those forward. So that's where we currently are on those.
So she's kind of inherited the responsibility to do the citywide policy manual.
Yeah, as long as it's not department specific. If
Right.
it's department specific, but if it's something safety related, overtime related, things that affect numerous departments, I'm trying to think of some of the recent ones we've done, then it's human resources. But if it is department specific, that department head then works with Cindy. But if it's citywide, then it's pretty much HR and myself.
Okay. And are we targeting to try to get a distributable policy manual by the end of the 24-25
We
season?
will have the employee handbook done by the end of this fiscal year.
Well, I'm not
I
talking
will
about the
make sure
employee
it's done.
handbook, I'm talking about the city's corporate policy manual.
The entire policy manual should be, a lot of that's incorporated in the handbook, correct?
A good bit, but there are different,
Yeah, but
there are
there's-
sections. One's finance, one's HR, there are different sections. So I'll have to work with the various departments and then bring them all together so we can put
So
them
the employee
on the
handbook,
web.
let me see if I understand this right. The employee handbook is a reference manual for an individual employee to see the way that they have to interact with the city and work with the city and do stuff like that. Correct. Policy manual is a definition of the city's policies for operating.
Correct.
Okay,
And
that's a
that'll-
different thing,
That's what her fiscal year 25 goal is
is the policy manual.
the policy.
That's what I was
Yes,
asking.
sorry.
I wasn't asking about the employee handbook, because you did a good job of telling us here, it's on Brian's desk.
Yeah, that's in bold letters too.
Look, I'll be happy. I'm
No,
happy to
that's
say
fine.
when it is my responsibility.
That's not a
it is.
problem, okay. I'm just interested in the city's corporate policy manual, because that contains things in it. We've had discussions about items, and I've asked, well, what is our policy? Well, we haven't, so,
There are times I've asked that too. Where is it?
yeah, okay, all right,
Yeah.
sounds good. I'm happy. Anybody else got questions? Comments? I guess we're now going to finance.
All right, so, thanks, Cindy. So I'm going to handle finance. Let me find what page this is on.
We're late, we always are. Talking to Wayne's back there.
He's good, he's early.
Or Wayne's early, I don't know which
Yeah.
it is.
Going through the chronological here in my book, and it's not lining up that way.
Yeah, so your book's not, I apologize, so we didn't go by this. Page 28
28
is Finance Department.
finance, okay.
So I'm going to review Finance Department. As I mentioned at the very beginning, Jen, who is the Assistant Finance Director, is on vacation. Once we changed the date, I wasn't going to require her to adjust her vacation. She's worked too hard over the last 3 months for me to make that decision. So in discussions with her and Ken, I told them I would handle the Finance Department budget portion that's before you all today. Obviously, you all saw the audit that was finalized that came to you all. We've got a couple changes that need to be made within the Finance Department. We are actively working on making those changes at the current time to ensure that those are not items that are brought up in our future year audit. And going within that, so position-wise, personnel-wise, we are working to fill the Finance Director position. I know we just recently interviewed someone. We do have an offer out, but we have not received a response. That all has happened this week. So we do have an offer out to someone currently. I'll give you all an update once we get a response back on that. You will see the projected expenditure for Finance Director position. That includes payouts. It includes his Ken's salary, his payout, and also we did bring him back on a part-time role. So all of that is kind of factored into his Finance Director cost that you see there.
For 23-24.
For 23-24, correct. So with that, I do want to also say that we budget annually an amount to pay for employees leaving and their payouts. So we do already have that amount budgeted, so it isn't an unexpected expense. But what we do is once that person within the department leaves, we just transfer those funds into that department with that. So we do have that covered under the budget. You will see there is one open position currently, or you don't see it here, but we do currently have one open position, which is the financial assistant. That position has been open. We were waiting until we got a finance director on board to get their input and allow them to have some say in that hiring process. However, since it's taken so long, I've informed our assistant finance director to get that job description finalized so we can get that position posted and get that person on board. So that position, like I said, is a vacant position currently, but it was in last year's budget and it is currently shown in this year's as well. As we go into their, obviously they have no capital expenses within the finance department. And as we go into operating, their operating budget did increase by $15,000. And you saw their total expenditures across their budget is an increase of 0.29% is what we have shown here. As you go into their budget, their proposed budget, you'll see an increase in audit fees. That was what was anticipated in the contract agreement we have with the auditing firm. As we go into future years, the cost obviously increases. So that increase is shown there. As you go down, everything for the most part is pretty consistent with where we were last fiscal year. Dues and memberships, I did, in discussions with them, with the new finance director, I think that we need to have someone attending the Florida Government Finance Officers Association Conference and getting more involved in that. And so I think so we allocated funds for the new director to be able to attend those functions and get more involved in that association. So any questions on the finance department?
Are, w- are we accruing an expense item for the future payouts on sick leave and so forth? We talked about doing that.
So we do budget, and I'll find the exact location for you.
Yeah, I
We
couldn't
do
find
budget an amount in the, I think it's around $389,000, somewhere in that number, for annual payouts. It's shown, I believe, in your, so if you look at page 185 under general fund, sorry to make you jump around.
Well, that's fine, but I just was,
But at the very end, once we get down to the very end, we obviously have our R&R account that we budget $275,000 a year. And then if you look at the very bottom, we do a reserve for employee final payouts. And that amount is budgeted at $389,000 annually. It's not all, we don't typically use that amount, but if you have someone like Mr. Kilgore who had been here for a while, his payout was substantial based on sick and vacation leave. I know this coming year we'll have our deputy police chief who's been here for a lengthy amount of time, so that'll be a good amount. But that is what we have there for all of our employees, and then we just transfer that out of the kind of non-departmental and it goes into the department when that employee leaves.
Okay.
well, one of the things that I'm thinking future discussions in the council probably more than anything else, but I mean, we're showing right now on the schedule for the general fund, we're showing right now almost a $9 million reserve. And that $9 million reserve has the $275 R&R fund committed against it. And then it's got there's a $565,000 signed funds, inventory, receivables, and so forth against it, and then it really drops down to a reserve about $7.7 million. But in reality, there is a major component that reserve. I mean, we're talking about the reserve covering hurricane damage and all that kind of stuff. Of the employees in the city, if we had a bad year and a large number of those employees left that have lots of sick leave that they get paid for and so forth, there's a number that we need to accrue against that reserve account that gives us a better picture of what our true reserves are. And that's the question I've been asking for several years. What is that number? I mean, if let's say that the top 35 employees in this city who have large amounts of sick leave and so forth accrue decide to walk out in 2025, how much is the city at risk for in that pool? And what does that do if we make that a restrictive reserve as opposed to an unrestricted reserve? What's that do to this $7 million reserve account? And is it really $5 million? Is it really $4.5 million based on that potential liability? Because we have to consider that as we talk about the value of the reserve account. This, to me, I'm going back to the discussion. Okay, the $7 million bottom line reserve is not a really true accurate number if we consider what we have as potential liabilities against that. We have, first hurricane storm cleanup, $1.5 million. Second hurricane storm cleanup, $1.5 million, okay? We could actually take that $7 million and start dropping things down and say, okay, how much true money do we have at the bottom line that is not I'll call it committed, but in reality that we don't have anticipated need for, truly anticipated need for. And what is that number? And that's the reason I'm asking about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say I know that it was mentioned a few years ago that the $5 million number was sufficient. But we all know inflation, everything costs have increased. I don't know that the $5 million number is even kind of a safe number for a large natural disaster at this point. Yeah. And we got to be able to fund those things out with that number. So I think that's something we have to look at. But then I'll also see if we can figure out our top 35 employees, kind of a number, I'll do a percentage basis of, say, our 25% of our workforce or something of that nature. I'm not going to just identify 35 employees.
No, I understand.
25% of our workforce, if they were to leave on an annual basis. We have a little bit of a control measure within the contracts and things with all of our employees in regards to what their payout maximums can be. So it can't just accrue, and you get paid out, 1,000 vacation hours. We have control measures in there that it can be capped, that is capped at a certain amount, no matter how many hours you have accrued. So we do have those control measures in there, but I think it would be a good number to be able to show to you all and your discussion and consideration in regards to what exactly our reserve fund is and where we're at with that.
I'm not at all worried about 5 million versus 7 million. The two concerns I have about the reserve account, first is you can't just continually assume that every extra dollar you got is going to go into reserves, and all of a sudden you realize you got $20 million in reserves. I mean, I hear complaints about that about other municipal organizations, especially some within our our short little region here. They have all these reserve accounts. But the second side of that is, at what point, and this is my concern, at what point when we look at reserves are we at an issue where we need to raise taxes to buffer reserves? Where is that point? I tried to do this in 2017 when I first came in, and I got jumped all over about it. I said, what's the minimum reserves we actually have to have? And let's compute that. And then we'll know, the council will know when you talk about this, when we hit this number, that means we have to consider raising taxes just for the purpose of funneling money into reserves. What is that bottom line number? And at the time I said, well, is it $3 million that we physically have to have there? There's all kinds of guidelines for that. But as this number gets larger, the question in my mind comes about is what things do we anticipate we need to pull out of here or be able to cover from this reserve account, and then what's the number there at the bottom? Because you know the discussion went on, and what's the number at the bottom that is, I don't know, if it was my personal side, I would call that my discretionary income. I can spend that going to Miami for a weekend, and it's not going to impact my ability to do the things I need to do. So that's discretionary. So what's the city's discretionary part of the reserves? And that's going to be part and parcel of a conversation we're going to have as a council here probably in a few days, as we get through this process. So I have that same problem trying to do that. My hand hits the wrong place and the page wants to jump. Okay. And I know that's not part of the finance budget. It's just a thing that came up when we were talking about that.
Yeah, I think Brian makes a valid point there, because as you all know, during our contract negotiations with the union for the employees and everything, that it's just not going to be an unlimited amount of time that people can, if they decide to leave, to want to sell back, and the city then has to reimburse them.
That's new, and we've got a large number of grandfathered employees.
Well, I don't know that we have
than that number.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a large number of those that, no. Because
Okay,
that
well,
number was reduced in the contract negotiations,
Yeah.
so.
But we didn't take away reimbursable time from people who had more than that base number.
But based on the previous contract. So it
Yes.
would go back to the previous contract, and employees that were hired before then did have a certain level, and then new hires after that point have a certain level.
Right.
But there still is that, measure there that prevents it from getting too high.
Okay.
So there is still that measure there.
All right. Okay. Finance budget. I'm fine. Anybody else got any questions on finance?
No.
All right, well, we can.
Man in the sky, do you have any questions on finance? Chris?
Sir, you've asked the questions I have.
Okay.
All right, well, we're moving right ahead. We're ahead of schedule. I'm glad I got Wayne in here early.
Do we
So,
need to take another break since we're ahead of schedule? No? Okay.
all right, Wayne, come on up. We're going to building department.
What page are we on with the building department, Brian?
Let's see, I gotta find it myself.
Oh, it's in,
138.
Wayne was better prepared than I was.
Yeah, Wayne's got it
38,
all ready to go.
38 is human resources,
139.
139. Why don't I look here on my thing? Yeah, 139.
All right, Wayne, you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on kind of revenue, where permits are coming in, how that situation lays out?
So I think we're pretty steady from where we were the year before. Anticipating a little bit of growth when Spirit of Sebastian starts cranking up, which looks like it's happening already. Otherwise, pretty all along down through the estimates there, it was pretty well the same as it was last year. I don't expect any real differences. I think our personal expenses are about the same. Maybe we've bumped up a little the continuing education a little bit, trying to provide more continuing education, making sure our guys are going to every available opportunity they can to get some continuing education. Just to, I don't know if you're aware, but our budget can only carry over so much, so we have to statutorily, so we have to try to look for ways that we can spend it, but the only way that really are allowed by statute is enforcement of the building code. So continuing education falls in that arena. We are also, our expenses, the only person we really added and really didn't add, we just substituted a position that wasn't filled last year. We were anticipating needing another permit technician, but that didn't really happen. But we are looking to try to step up our scanning abilities and looking for a part-time person that would be able to help us with that. We're trying to clean out old files. We really don't want to throw it out, even though statute would let us. We're trying to scan everything so we don't lose any records. And we have one person right now that's doing that, but we'd like to step that up because there's just so much to do. I mean, it's really going to take years to get it done, but we need that space where the files are. We need that. We're just running out of room for people.
And that's that clerical assistant, one
Yeah.
part-time that's doing
Yes.
that 50% of the time?
Yeah.
Is that, you're dropping your fire inspector from a full-time person to a half? Are you kind of
well, we had
piggybacking
two.
those together, or what?
And we had two fire inspectors. One gentleman who's retired is, he's had some personal issues with sickness, things like that. So he's, once we hired Sandy, she's very experienced and she can pretty much handle everything. So we're just down to one part-time fire inspector.
So you're doing a lot of your fire inspections then with one of your building inspectors that you hired?
But she's a fire inspector.
Okay, she's a fire, well,
Yeah.
okay. So you're only showing half of a person in 24, 25 in there?
Yeah, because it's a part-time position.
Yeah, it's part-time.
Oh, it's a part-time position, okay, all right, so, okay.
So in 23, 24, we had 2 part-time employees doing fire inspection.
Yeah.
But it has been reduced to just having 1 part-time person.
And then we added the clerical assistant part-time.
Yeah,
So it's really the same.
and you're dropping one permit technician, that's because of the automated system?
Yeah, that
and
was
so
kind of the
forth.
swap, the permit technician for the part-time.
And I'll say this, and Wayne, he just had the good news the other day that they've pretty much almost fully, with permit applications, can do it all online, correct,
Yeah,
Wayne?
yeah,
And so I think that
finally-
plays a part with the permit tech and stuff like that, is we're a lot more online now.
Right.
So are we going to have any issues with this new state statute on permitting that they passed last year?
Regarding what?
Or something, or whatever
Oh,
it is.
Yeah.
No, we already meet those deadlines.
You already meet the deadlines, you don't have any problem with that?
Yeah, I don't see
Okay.
that being a problem for us.
I knew we were quicker than a lot of other people,
Yeah,
so.
well, the only, when it first, I mean, that statute was changed a couple of cycles ago, and then every year they keep massaging it more, making it tighter and tighter. But the only thing we had to really adjust for was a 30-day turnaround on the houses, making sure we were meeting that all the time. So, but we're doing okay.
I think the biggest problem with that is people can actually come in and pull permits before they have site plan approval.
Yes.
That's going to cause some real issues, especially from an inspection point of view, maybe.
There's going to be some challenges there if that happens, yes.
I mean, it's going to be tough to do tree inspections and so forth on that, on new plots?
Well, I mean, I think they're gonna have to develop the site. They gotta make it safe. They're gonna have to put in water, fire hydrants before they bring in combustibles. is the way I'm
But if they
looking at
haven't
it.
even
So,
finished their
but-
site plan, they don't even have engineering for that.
But it allows them to start before the final plat, including building permits, whether that actually really happens or not. I don't know what's spawned that. I think something somewhere in the other part of the state that usually that's what happens.
Yeah. Wayne, so on the fencing permits, did we not do those anymore?
It's
Or
in
that's been combined with something else?
Engineering.
With engineering,
Yeah,
okay.
we put it over in their budget.
All right, so that's on the engineering
Yeah,
now.
they took over the fence inspections a while back, so we're now, the revenue goes to them, general fund.
I'm happy with the building department. I mean, you talk to people in the industry that do this stuff for a living, and they talk about how much nicer our building department is than almost everyone around us, so.
That's good.
We hear that too.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be in a small town. I mean, even though we don't have a large staff, but a lot of hands-on.
And I do just want to, kind of point out, Wayne, the building department's in a good position. So, we did kind of look at, he's got 2 pickup trucks that are being replaced this year, a large plan scanner and desktop scanner. All those things kind of play into, for one, the scanners with the new clerical position, but going ahead and replacing some trucks that need to be replaced, and moving those up into this fiscal year.
And
trying to
those are
expend
for
some funds.
inspectors to use?
Yeah, our fleet is getting kind of old.
Yeah.
So my question is, can we do hybrid or full electric? I mean, it's an inspector's truck, right?
Correct. So I know that we had an issue with the length of the bed because of the ladders. Because we were looking at
Well,
a
the
little bit
last one we
smaller.
got was another, we've got these Nissan, what are they, Frontiers?
Frontier.
And, yeah, we were looking at what was it, it's a Maverick?
The Maverick.
Yeah, but they weren't.
It's got a shorter bed.
Bed wasn't long enough because they could carry a full-size ladder, 16-foot ladder, so.
I mean,
Yeah, that was our concern, but we can look at, I mean, a larger truck can probably, like an F-150, we could look at electric for that. We can do that, research and look into that. It's just we were trying to go
Why-
as cheap as we can.
Why are we looking at electric,
But,
can I ask?
Well, quite frankly, if
They're
we're
worse
gonna,
for
if
the
we're
en-
gonna be
they're worse
committed
for
to.
the environment, I hate to tell you.
Yeah, if
They
we're
are
gonna be
worse.
committed to sustainable, Sebastian, then we should be committed to the things that
You need to do your
work through the
research.
sustainable
They're
process.
worse for the environment.
Hybrid's the best.
I don't know.
They are.
I don't know. I've seen, it's kind of like the glyphosate argument. Pile of documents over here by experts and a pile of documents over by experts. Bad, good.
Right.
Same thing with electric hybrid cars. Bad, good,
Nope. Nope.
So, but the real question in my mind is 55 miles to a gallon versus 32 miles or 22 miles to a gallon, or 18 miles
Around
to a
town,
gallon.
yeah.
So Brian, maybe you or Wayne could answer this. The use of unrestricted reserves increased for 24, 25. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I'm not sure what that really means.
Yeah, so basically the cost of operating, including personnel capital, is higher than anticipated revenues for the building fund. Because if you, realize, and I know you all are aware, it's an enterprise fund, we don't subsidize it from general fund. So their costs are higher than their anticipated revenues for next fiscal year. However, they have such a large reserve account, we have to statutorily utilize those funds. If we don't, we have to issue refunds back out.
Which is not even.
It's not even a
doable. I mean,
feasible
yeah,
process.
I wouldn't-
So that's why you see,
Right, so
yes,
that's in
we,
their reserve.
correct.
Okay, that's what I was questioning.
separate
Okay,
from that.
that's separate from the other reserve.
Absolutely,
Okay,
100%
okay,
of their expenses come directly out of the building fund.
Right, all right.
But
What
back
kind
to the, I just want to, we'll look into the electric vehicle. I just know when we did it this past year with the hybrid, we're looking at the hybrid, I think with the Maverick, the truck bed was not sufficient for their ladders and what they have to carry. But we'll do another evaluation of that and look into that.
How long, what kind of leeway do you have on these reserve accounts? I mean, I noticed you're in the process of reducing it over time and to where 29, 30, it's down to, 1,600,000 or actually a negative, but, so you're in the process of reducing that. Are we under a time crunch to use that money? Is there some statute that requires that we use it within a certain window?
Well, there's a statute that allows you to only carry over so much, and, I have it here. It doesn't really give you a time frame, in which to make this happen, but we're kind of basically working on it every year. It says unexpected balances must be carried forward to future years for allowable activities or must be funded at the discretion of local government, may not carry forward an amount exceeding the average of its operating budget for enforcing the Florida Building Code for the previous 4 fiscal years. So every year we have to look at that and try to figure out what that number is and then try to see what we can do to meet it.
Yeah. So the amount greater than operating budget is the kick we have to stay within.
I would say if someone challenged us and said we were, we had too much excess funds, and we'd have to try to find a way to see if we can reduce the fees or reduce the, you can spend it in different ways. The only thing they only allow you to spend it in certain ways. Construction of a building or structure that houses local government's building code enforcement agency or the training programs for building officials, inspectors, plans, examiners associated with enforcement of the Florida Building Code. So there's really, other than putting an addition on City Hall, we could do that, put the building department in it.
So it doesn't include a provision for vehicles or equipment of any type for the building department?
Our operating budget, because
Okay.
all that's associated with enforcing the Florida Building
Right,
Code.
so you can use that money if you
Yeah.
have to purchase vehicles,
Right.
et cetera, right?
But then they don't allow us to, this specifically says you can't use it for planning and zoning or other governmental activities, inspections of public buildings for a reduced fee or no fee, public information requests, community functions, boards, or any program not directly related to enforcement of Florida Building Code. So it's all laid out in statute. So it kind of limits us, kind of handcuffs us at the same time. But then we've had, there was years ago where the building department was not doing so well. And we went through our reserves. It was almost to the point where the city was going to have to subsidize the building department. We did do that through the business tax fees that were left in the building department instead of going back to general fund. But as soon as we recovered from that, that was all paid back really quick. So way ahead of schedule. So, we just don't want to be in that point anymore. We want to make sure we have a healthy reserve.
We can't build a home for the building department for $1.5 million, so it's.
Yeah, I've seen other cities
know.
do it and build an entire building.
Unless we stick you in one of those hangars out at the airport or something.
One for
Yeah.
them. So out of that
Okay,
reserve.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, my biggest concern, and Wayne just hit it perfectly right there, is we're very conscientious, or Wayne's been great about what he's spending these funds on. And I think the budget's even now is still tight, even with trying to expend some of those things. But we also, in the back of our minds, know that at any time market changes, all of a sudden people aren't coming in for permits. We have those funds that can be utilized to maintain having our staffing and continue to do those.
There was an article in a national publication last week that said that Sebastian Vero is one of the 10 markets in the United States that's ready for a bubble burst. So
You just never know. And it's so hard to find qualified employees, inspectors.
okay.
Any other, Councilmember Nunn, do you have any questions for the building department?
No, sir.
Any other questions for Wayne? No. Good job, Wayne.
Thank you. Right.
Keeping them happy. We hear positive things about our building department.
Yes, thank you.
Now, before we bring the airport up, anybody need a break?
I do.
We're ahead of schedule. You do?
Yes,
Let's do
please,
it.
thank you.
Schedule, make Jeff sit and wait.
So real
Yes.
quick, I do want to state, I know we have our schedule. My plan is to move MIS to before lunch. So we'll go Jeff and then MIS, then we'll break for lunch.
So we'll do airport, then MIS.
Way to keep
So we're
Turn
doing Jeff first and then MIS and then lunch.
Mike.
Okay, we're all back. We're going to now go to the airport. And I'll turn it over to our airport director.
Jeff, Mr. Sabo?
Overall, pretty much an even keel. Brian and I talked extensively. We basically pulled back a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit from last year. Projections all look good. I am encouraged because we've got some good revenue opportunities coming up. We hope to sign multiple leases as we go into the new fiscal year, so that should go to the bottom line. And going into this coming fiscal year, along with a couple of the ones to follow, we had a couple projects that just didn't seem to demand as much need, and I've tried to space things out a little bit because I know the city has a lot of other needs right now between stormwater, roads, and things along that line. FDOT and FAA are being quite generous, and there is money out there to be had, but of course we always need to be able to fulfill our obligations, and I don't want to step us out too awful far. But for the most part, I believe we're in good shape and very optimistic about what's coming up.
Yeah, and I just want to build on that a little bit. So when Jeff was talking about kind of pulling a few projects back, so we use, typically on any of our construction projects and things, runway type situations or development at the airport, a lot of our matching funds are utilized as DST funding. And so Jeff has a bunch of projects, quite a few, that are outlined over the future years. And I just felt like, we were trying to get so much done and so much accomplished at the airport that we needed to slow it down just a little bit in our development out there. I think we still have plenty to do, and we're still on pace to continue to expand and improve the airport property. But it just came down to being able to fund and commit as much DST dollars as we needed to for the matching portions. And even I think part of our slowing down wasn't so much not doing a project, it was being realistic about our timeline on it. So, if we're asking for the matching funds in next year's budget, well, that means the project needs to be shovel ready, ready to go, proceeding, because a lot of these projects take 6 months to a year to complete, and that wasn't realistic. So we then just push it out a year or two with our funding portion because we weren't going to need those funds until we were at that level. So just wanted to clarify that a little bit. And I know we have revenues that are being brought in out of the airport. We're looking forward to getting Hangar D built out so that we can begin to accrue some rental funds from Hangar D and going forward on that. And then I'll turn it back over to Jeff. He can talk to you all about staff, capital projects, and his operating.
Always want more staff, but at this particular point, our focus was on upgrading the existing full-timer to a level 3. He has been taking on a lot of extra duties and responsibilities, especially while I'm chasing around with a lot of the paperwork behind the scenes, but he's doing an excellent job, self-starter, self-sufficient. Right now, we're in that difficult time of year where everything starts to grow. And so many things have to get pushed off to the side. Well, this year with our part-timer, there are at least 3 days a week where we have 2 people on hand, and we're sharing an employee from another department to try and get us a couple more days worth of work so that we don't have to stop everything just to mow and keep up with the fields. My thrust here going into the next year is to try and make the airport a little bit more self-sufficient so we don't have to rely on other departments as much. Come help, come help. So there's a couple different ways in terms of 1 or 2 contracts and some of the physical maintenance and things along that line that we're trying to get our hands around. So that was where that was at. A second part-timer, we'll talk about that in the future, but for right now I think we'll be okay moving forward with what we've got and the extra help that Brian has been able to allot to us for a couple days out of each week. Some of our capital items, we're kind of thin going into this year. We've got one of the big diesel zero-turn mowers is reaching its life expectancy. We've kind of budgeted that out, give or take around $17,000, and the need of a pickup truck. That looks like a cheap pickup truck, but we don't need a new one. And as the fleets get maneuvered around, as something comes out of another department, we're more than willing to take a used piece of equipment, but I don't want to take the budget hit that I haven't prepared for to bring that piece into the airport.
And if I can just add on that, so that piece of equipment, that pickup truck, is pretty much for airport property and that general vicinity. So even if we are taking something that's offline in another department that we are replacing, it's not like, you know, that department's just getting rid of a truck that we can use elsewhere. It really is, we're getting rid of a truck that's now going on the airport property in those areas that necessarily doesn't need to be as, you know, high functioning as we need in some of our other departments, pulling trailers and things like that.
Right, yeah, this one serves as a multiple uses, but primarily for transport of fuel. So we don't have to run the equipment itself all the way to the Public Works building. Instead, we can transport the fuel to the equipment and use it right there on the field. Looking ahead into some of the projects that we have coming up, we've got the, more recently here, Brian mentioned Hangar D, the offices, that bid has come back in. We'll be seeing you all Wednesday night for the selection of that particular contractor to get that project going. That will finish out the offices in the Hangar D, and upon that completion, it gets the certificate of occupancy, and then we'll start making rent off of that building finally. A couple other items that are more recent here. I don't want to jump too far ahead. Let's keep us as to what's relative. We'll be looking at the design right now for taxiway golf is underway. That's going to be up on the northwest corner of the field. That's the old closed runway. And on that existing footprint, we are designing using part of that as a new taxiway sitting on the same base that will connect the middle of the field up to the northwest corner of the field. And then in steps behind that, as we go through the fiscal years, the rest of that footprint will include an apron for hangars to be built, aircraft to be parked, and then infrastructure to feed it, electricity, water, sewer, and roads and the like. That is the last buildable, expandable, that is the future of the airport right now, because we're landlocked by the golf course and everything else. But we've got good space up there, a lot of acreage that we can build out. We just need to start to prepare that area to make it usable.
Good idea.
So this, on this $1,975,000 grant for the taxiway golf construction, that's going to be, you're looking at FDOT grants and stuff like that, right?
That's correct.
And that is just for, is that for the construction of that taxiway over there?
Correct.
Because I'm leading into, when you go into 26, 27, there's additional 300 plus thousand to construct a taxiway golf apron.
Correct. The apron is being split out as a separate project. And in doing so, we're hoping that we can get a little bit of participation out of FAA. If the FAA comes into any one of these projects, it drops our exposure from 20% down to 5%. But FAA is very picky. Anything that we go to them with, they want to make sure it is for the public and for the greater good of everyone. But as soon as anything in terms of a commercial or private hangar would be built next to these particular areas, then they don't want any parts of it. The taxiway would serve the greater good of the whole airport. At this point, we are fully funded by FDOT, but we will certainly ask to see if we can get FAA to come in as well.
Right, so that taxiway over there is just, is the base underneath the asphalt good? Is because the asphalt is cracked up, there's grass growing through it and all of that stuff. But the base, the underline, they would just have to mill and resurface that area, or would they have to do base?
Correct. At this point, almost all the base is in very good shape. Up in the storage area where a lot of the material piles have been, it's taken a lot of working.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And we're in the process of getting that stuff out of there, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. But we anticipate, since it was a runway, that base is very significant and has a lot of life still in it. And as a matter of fact, next week, the engineering firm is bringing in the geo guys to do some core samples, verify that we've got what we need underneath of there. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You can go ahead.
No, please, please. But other than that, we're also looking to do some design for expanding the apron in front of the terminal building. The original design is not meeting the current needs, and by doing a little bit of rework there, adding some additional asphalt and making sure that we protect the stormwater issues, we're going to be able to double our parking spaces. And right now we're in a big need for that because transient and visiting aircraft have to compete with what's already going on in the commercial hangars for flight school aircraft, things along that line. We mandate that we keep at least 3 spots open, but it gets busy over there, and of course that's where the fuel pumps are, so there's a lot of traffic that comes in and out of the same area. We've got the space, it's just a matter of going from grass to asphalt and getting some lines and tie downs in place so we can get better use out of it.
Yeah, thinking of that though, in that area up there, are we looking into the future of having like a terminal building, something better than what we have there because we have some outdated stuff there? And are we looking in the future about having like a terminal building there?
Well, with what we've got, the current functions of the building kind of go 2 different ways. The flight school uses one whole wing of that building, and it serves them very well. The brunt of the rest of the building is used by Wayland Lighting, and even though it's more of an office and manufacturing type of business, they do have the adjacent hangar. They've got a couple of aircraft that come in and out of there, but that hangar is more of a warehousing and distribution facility. I'd like to see us get a changed use and kind of refine the way the terminal building is being used. Because we have interests from groups that either want to do flight examination, where they come in and actually test the students. That's separate from the actual flight schools themselves. Designated examiners need a place to be able to operate out of. And at the same time, charter operators always ask and are looking for office space and the like. So what we have, I think, is very sufficient. It's still got good life in it. The building's in real good shape.
Yeah, I was actually, I was confused there a little bit because when you're talking about the terminal building, you're talking about the one that's right over here. But I was more in the line of talking about the west side, where all the aircraft come in and take off and that type of stuff.
Right.
Near where Skydive Sebastian is.
Right, and up there on that corner, that's, again, that's our future. And we will be looking for all types of, to make it a destination general aviation airport.
Right.
We've got a couple of different maintenance outfits. One of our new tenants going into Hangar D is going to be increased to more professional training with small jets and simulator training, and they're also bringing designated work on a couple of different types of aircraft that we can't take care of now. So the need anywhere on these airports is maintenance, parking, fuel. And we've got the opportunity to add some of that, both on the north end, either with another fixed-based operator that could potentially go in there, but the constant flow of 2 to 3 calls a week. Do you have any place to put my airplane? Where can I put an airplane?
Right.
Where can I put a hangar? So that's where we're trying to push. And thankfully, FDOT is interested in helping us out with a lot of those same questions.
Well, given that discussion, is it time for us to think about putting some money into the budget to redo the airport's long-range plan?
Well, the master plan, that is going to be due coming up in, I'll have to look ahead here. I think that's 2 years or 3 years off, where we physically have to, within, give or take 10 years, you redo the master plan.
Yeah.
And coming out of the last one, which I want to say was 18 or 19, yeah, the flavors have changed a little bit. So we will have to seek a professional engineering firm to come in, update the plan. We submit it to FDOT up in Tallahassee, and they say, yes, you're on the right track. Maybe you should consider this and the like. And it's it's kind of a strategic plan for us. It's kind of a steering vehicle that determines that these areas are the type of things that should be built. This is what's already in place, and these are potential things that could enhance or improve the airport. Some of our bigger obligations right now, of course, we're taking care of what we got. We'll have another taxiway that'll need to be rehabilitated in the coming years. It's just a matter of a mill and pave. So those are kind of big things, and a lot of these items are going to be more efficient, I feel, to go to outsiders and let them build upon our land to get these structures out of the ground. The costs that are coming to us as a municipality when we go out to bid to try and do these things ourselves are significantly more than if you or I wanted to do it in our own backyard. And
Yeah, because I mean, I agree 100% with what you said at the beginning of this. We have some very high priority things, probably over, quite frankly, probably over the next 10 to 20 years, that we're going to have to use discretionary sales tax money to do grant matching for. I mean, we're probably going to end up, quite frankly, having to go out for bond issues for some of the big stuff because we're not going to be able to get grants to cover it. And so in the past, what we've done is we've dedicated quite a bit of the discretionary sales tax to do matching for airport expansion. What we need to do is to rethink that investment based on the more current needs, which would be the update of the master plan. Now, do we wait 3 years for that? I don't know. Or do we do something in the interim on our own that's more in line with us trying to look at what we might be able to do, like with the west side of the airport, for example, what we might be able to do there that is revenue generating.
Yep.
And is it worth investing some of our discretionary sales tax money that might go towards matching funds for other things to do that because it's revenue generating? Quite frankly, a lot of this other stuff we've got to do with the city is not revenue generating, in any way, shape, or form. So I think it's important for us to consider the fact that we have to kind of back off some of that matching money at the airport, which you're doing, which is a good move. And before we re-trigger that or restart that, we need to do that based on some type of a planning process that says this is where we think we should invest the money in the airport. This is what kind of revenue we can generate from that.
Right.
Because I think what Fred was talking about was a good idea about the west side of the airport. I don't know you'll ever turn that airport into something that has like an executive flying service, where we might have a terminal building that's got a little cafeteria in it and all that kind of stuff where so pilot that flies his owner in and he's here for a day, he sets someplace to hang out while his owner is doing what he's doing or something like that. I don't know whether you ever get to that point.
Right.
Bureau's going to tear you up on that probably, but.
Yeah, we have to be realistic about what our image and our facility represents. There's no need for us to ever to pursue commercial service here.
No.
It just doesn't make sense when we're
no.
bracketed by
And
Millburn Bureau.
I mean, until FAA wants to build a tower, there's a limit to what you can do in that regard. So.
Exactly. And we're also limited by the length of our runways as to what can actually get in and get out of here. We're watching the transition of a lot of out there is hobby. I own my own airplane. I do this on the side. I do it for fun and the like. But one or two of our new tenants, there's a big emphasis right now. All the airlines are so desperate for pilots. That's where these training facilities are making their mark. But I also have a tenant that wants to, it's gotten too expensive to operate south of here. So let's bring some of these small jets that are capable of operating in and out of here, service them, and do the types of things at a much better rate than even for fuel than what they'll pay further south. So.
Yeah, so I was asked about that too, Jeff, just recently, because I know that we have the new company that came in over at Hangar D, and they have a small jet in there as well as a twin prop engine and some other stuff. And it's like, the question was like, how is our runways able to handle that? I'm like, well, that jet wouldn't be in here, but to that point, that size that's there, I think it's 6 or 8 seater or something like that, right?
Right.
Anything that size or smaller can then accommodate anything a little bit larger, because a lot of the folks are moving out, the small aviation are moving out of the bigger city areas because this is much easier to operate, to come in and out here for small aviation companies and stuff, so.
Right. We have a lot of capability based on that runway, and you'd be surprised at some of the equipment that could operate out of here. For something to come in for maintenance, the runway is sufficient to get it in and get it out. Now, you're not going to leave with 8 or 10 people in the back and all their suitcases and the full fuel. You're not going to do that. But to bring the aircraft in for some training, to do all types of different maintenance work, you adjust your fuel accordingly, and you can get out of here in good shape with the shorter runways that we have. But it protects us also that we're not going to get anything big, boisterous,
Right.
and busted in here. And you were talking about for Wayne's vehicles, we need to look somewhere down the line. I don't see it as being imminent, but electrification is coming in. And we're going to start seeing airplanes eventually that want to plug in, not pump. And I think that's a little ways off yet, and we don't need to lead that charge, but the state is also asking and looking for different types of ways that that's going to happen. It's inevitable. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes over the coming years, but right now we got a good niche, and if we continue to take advantage of that and address the needs that we currently have, I think we'll be in good shape.
So I think a couple of things based on this conversation. So the master plan, Jeff and I will discuss that, see if it's something that we want to move forward in the plan. Because right now it's obviously funded by the airport fund, but we can look at that. I know he's got it planned out right now in 27, 28. We'll have a discussion after this and see if it's something we want to look at moving forward. And then also I just want to clarify, because I know a lot of times, you know, from the public side and people that watch this, DST funds that are used at the airport as matching for grants, if it is something that is profit generating, the airport then has a debt service to pay that DST fund back. If it is DST that is used for runways, things like that, that don't make a profit at the airport, then they don't have to pay that money back.
Right.
But anything that's used, for instance, in a hangar or things like that, that are profit generating for the airport, they have a responsibility to pay that DST fund back to the city.
Yeah.
So just want to clarify that, and then I'll turn it back over to Jeff on, I think his operating budget is pretty straightforward, pretty, you know, lean, but if you all have questions for him on operating, or if Jeff, if there's anything you want to clarify.
Probably the only things I would touch on, there was an increase in contractual services. We hope to address a couple of downfalls that we need for some of our security and gate operating systems. We'll also be doing an upgrade on the automatic weather system. That might have a change in our current maintenance agreement to take care of and upkeep that. But other than that, everything was pretty much close to where we were before. The actual security systems for the gates and the badging and the cameras and the like, we increased that budget enough to make sure that we can get a start on it. And there's also a grant coming to help us to refurbish a lot of the equipment out there for that airport access. But for the most part, we stayed steady year over year, had a few decreases wherever we could. Every time I see the fuel and oil and the insurance numbers, I hesitate, so yeah, we kept it tight.
So Jeff, sounds like you covered everything there, so just a brief overview about how you guys feel about the projects that were done as far as the runway rehabilitation and the new lighting that was out there. I understand there were some issues with the lighting at first, or a portion of it, but everything is on track now?
We're on the home stretch. The whole issue with the runway, initially, as they got ready to begin work, they discovered they had a survey error, a survey bust, as they call it. And as they got further into the numbers, trying to figure out whose fault it was, they realized they had to resurvey the entire runway. And what started as ahead of schedule ended up barely meeting the schedule. But that survey bust, when they changed everything involved with what the runway was going to end up being based on the changes in height and leveling and everything else, every single one of the lights that run down both sides of the runway and at the ends all have to come up, and they're supposed to be within a certain measurement based on that. Well, all the extensions, all these custom-made cans that hold those lights, they almost threw it out the window. So they had to come back, figure we can use this one there now and that one here, but at the same time, there's some that will have to be reproduced and starting from scratch. Those we're waiting on now. They're supposed to be here any day. And the final lights, the last of those cans are the ones in the intersection, along with the last of the paint and marking. All that has been done with the exception of what's in the intersection. So if all that comes to bear, give or take the second week of August, we'll do one more overnight closure. All the contractors come in to take care of that, and then it'll finally be done. But the runway's open, it's usable, we get compliments on the way it rides, the way it feels and looks. And so that one we're about to put to bed. The two Alpha aprons, we're getting ready to do the completion paperwork on it first part of next week. That'll be done and off of our plate. And again, the square hangars over on the west side, they should be breaking ground over there also first part of August. So we'll just move from one thing to another.
Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Nunn, did you have any questions? Sorry.
No, I just want to say great job as always out there at the airport. You're doing good things and bringing a lot of new business to the airport. And everything you've built, you found a way to use it. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Super. Thank you.
Great job, Jeff. All right, we will, I don't know, in our agenda, we didn't outline times, but in an email to you all, I had outlined some times in anticipation. So we're going to move MIS up to now, and we'll get that done before we break at 12 o'clock, and then we'll start back at 12:45 with the police department.
What page is MIS on?
Let me find that for you.
33.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara, you're up.
Thank you. The MIS department has been steadily doing what we do, is trying to keep the city running in the background. Most people don't know what we do. Anything with a light or a cord, we seem to interact with somehow. So during this process, we've been working to try to keep the costs down for the city, maintain value, and try to maintain security for the city's infrastructure for all departments, including the police department, the public works compound, and all the other areas. That consolidation is the main reason why the MIS budget's operation is as large as it is, because we consolidate almost all technology costs under the MIS to be transparent with the city, to make sure that no department's making decisions without considering the greater whole, and we maximize the usage of that technology across all the departments. We do have a slight increase in our operations this year, very slight, but that is because we are actually finishing a consolidation for the other departments, and we are doing away with an inventory system, and we're just going to handle that inside of MIS in order to reallocate everything. So we are also looking at increasing our personnel. We have one part-time individual we're looking to move him full-time in order to better supplement the social media position, along with strengthen our staffing in the AV division to start highlighting other things within the city and provide more of that documentaries and stuff that people have been wanting for a very long time that we haven't had the staffing. We have a very talented individual in that position.
And Barb, I'm just going to jump in there just to make it clear that, so this is something that Barb and I have discussed. I think it's a benefit not just to MIS, but also to the city manager's office with the assistance with Avery. As she's mentioned, she has a very talented person who handles cameras very well and does a lot of our video stuff that is now being shown on social media, and kind of accentuates Avery's area. And Avery still does a lot of pictures, videos herself, but Jason is an employee that we're utilizing quite a bit to go out and do a lot of that videography stuff for her. So it was my recommendation and discussion, and she wanted to look into making his position a full-time position, but with my recommendation in the budget as well, that it gets converted from part-time to full-time, so that we have additional hours and the availability on him of having him here on a daily basis to be able to go out and do that stuff.
Also, with everything we've really scrutinized our budget, trying to keep costs down, trying to manage the upgrades while still maintaining security. And that included the Office 2021 upgrade that we just did.
Right.
In order to balance that risk and security versus the updates that we needed to do. In our projects, we do have our yearly budgets of computer replacements. Computers are not coming down any cheaper, especially with the warranties and stuff that we're getting, and we're trying to get a little better computer for both the city hall and the police department to try to get them to last. So, and the road patrol laptops, for instance, average around $3,000 a piece. Wow. So they are, the computers are not cheap. I've got everyone but the enterprise funds. So the golf course, the airport, and the building department. They are responsible for their own computers, but everybody else who would fall into the general fund, we are responsible for every piece of their technology.
Okay.
And that is a way that we're able to move items around and better situate the city and make sure that we're not underutilizing what we have,
Right.
trying to use it to the best that we have. We also have been working diligently on the network infrastructure. As you see, we have a yearly line item as like for that, just to make sure that we're not lingering behind. None of our infrastructure is out of date. It's keeping up with its warranties. We're getting the needed backbone speeds and stuff like that. Security cameras, we've been working with the parks for several years now, getting cameras out in the parks where necessary. That is not a small endeavor. It requires.
How are the parks-based security cameras you've got installed working? Are they working well?
They are working very well, and the general consensus is we need more of them. That is coming from both the public and the police department, and we are always trying to find the best places to put those cameras where it's beneficial to the city and all. The biggest delay that we've had this year is because we had several months where we didn't have a Parks and Rec director, and we wanted to wait until he got here. That way he could set the priority of where we were doing that.
Yeah.
We have since started moving forward with that project again, now that we have as like a baseline of going forward and where we want to go from here. So.
Yeah, because any place kids can congregate potentially by themselves needs to be under camera today, you know, it's possible.
And we have been working diligently with.
It's the world we live in.
We've been working diligently with our security vendors to utilize the most reliable technology we can do for those areas, and with the ability for the police department to access it without much difficulty.
Good.
I just want to follow up on one thing, though. When you talk about the actual buying the actual computers and stuff like that for building department, the airport, which are enterprise, and the golf course, but you are still providing the technical services to them, right? It's just the equipment and all of that they're responsible for.
And that is correct, but we still make the purchases for them.
Right.
They are not allowed to go out and do those purchases on their own.
Right, so pretty much everything is run through you except for the cost of those that's coming out of their budget
That's correct.
versus MIS budget.
That's correct,
right.
and we still cover the incidentals unless the $50 mouse or as I get or the cables and stuff that they needed to connect the new monitors that they had. We'll cover those under ours because we probably have the cables around, which we have plenty of them. They breed. We are looking this year to finally upgrade the internal security system, camera system for the City Hall and the Police Department. They're over 20 years old.
Wow.
And we are running into difficulties getting parts for them. And therefore, we are going to have to address this.
And Barb, on just speaking on that, we're planning to add additional cameras.
Yes, ma'am.
And ensure that we have full coverage on our facilities here within this campus. So that's one of the things with this is not just improvements, but also improving the number, increasing the number of cameras that we have as well.
Overall, we're also continuing to work on making sure that the Public Works compound gets its necessary improvements that it needs. That's been a work in progress. We're currently under our current year project. We're waiting to hear from a vendor to get on their schedule to get infrastructure between the airport and the Public Works compound in order to stabilize out some connectivity issues that we have out there.
I have a question. I noticed the training and education line item is going down. Is that because there's like no additional hires?
No, it's because in order to try to keep our budget as slim as possible,
Okay.
it's like I have actually cut out conferences
Okay.
and that sort of stuff, and that's why those line items came down.
Okay.
Because it was a conscious choice in order to make our budget as slim and efficient as possible. I needed those monies somewhere else
You need
in order to provide the city.
Right.
So that's why those numbers are lower.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think at some point, thanks for that, Kelly.
Sure.
But I think at some point, though, we can't keep going down this road of not having that continual education for those employees. So we need to look at, Brian, whoever, we need to look at something to make sure that they have enough in their budget to actually do that.
They have, there is a lot of certifications in there if they follow through.
Right.
We also have a year-long subscription to a service called IT Pro TV, which anything that you can think about IT-wise, you can get training on. So they do have access to continual education.
Okay.
And so with that being in mind, the only person that the conferences affected was me. As like, because I was the only conference that we readily budget for is the FDLE conference. And I'm dealing with that through additional means if we need to go.
Yeah, see, I understand the conference side of it. I just don't want the education side of it to be lacking for any of our employees in any department.
Yeah, I
is
did.
my concern. To cut a
Right.
budget so that we can stop people getting training, I don't see that. So
No,
This
the
is what I'm
only-
talking about. A conference is a different story, so,
Bingo.
Okay.
The only thing I cut out of there was conferences.
okay.
It's
good.
like the other training is still in there. We still got our A+, we still got the CCNAs, we still got A+ certifications and stuff like that in there for them.
And as we had, I think you and I had a side discussion at one point, like the Microsoft upgrade, we were like 10 years behind.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as I said, we're still in the process of catching up some of our software to the latest versions. And that's always a constantly evolving thing. There's always
Right.
hardware that needs attention, servers that need to be upgraded and stuff like that. And so it was a conscious decision to decide to pull those conferences out. That way I could, it's like lighten the load on the budget a little and still keep the things that we absolutely needed.
Well, thank you.
And I'll just add one thing, and Barb mentioned it early on, but, one of the biggest changes in MIS this year is, if you look at previous budgets, most departments in the past had $200, $300 in computer supplies. But then they were also going to MIS, and so she mentioned earlier that we've basically taken everything from every department, except for the enterprise funds, put all those small purchases underneath MIS, so that if you need a mouse, you need a keyboard, you go to MIS for it, instead of the departments just purchasing their own things and then saying, hey, my keyboard no longer works. Well, it won't connect because of different reasons. So now everybody just goes through MIS and makes those purchases.
It also lightens the load on our department as well, because when we have these inventory accounts and they have to be charged out every month, I can have parts that have been superseded and then they stay in inventory. And that way I can keep the load lighter and do small parts and stuff and stuff like that in order to balance everything out.
Right, well, it just makes sense to have that centralized to the experts that handle that. You think about it, if I'm upstairs, I don't know what type of mouse to get for this. If I want a different type of keyboard, it's important to have the people that have that knowledge, to have that control of those small items. So I really like that move in that direction.
Anything else for Barbara?
Councilmember Nunn, do you have anything?
Councilmember Nunn, you have anything?
No, sir. Thank
We
you.
forget about him in the
All
dark.
right, thank you. Barbara, thank you. You guys do a great
Thank you.
job.
Thank you.
You do.
All right, so anything else you all want to discuss before we'll have a little bit of a longer break because the next one's not going to start until 12:45.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll start at 12:45 with the police department, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.